Good evening. I'm Scott Sackett. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you like this video, please take a second to leave a review and subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I try and answer any and all comments, good, bad, or ugly. Anyway, I thought I would do a video. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but it hadn't been a good way to do this until I kind of decided I was going to do it this way, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I wanted to do a video, a walkthrough of my sketchbook. I've kept a sketchbook since I was a kid. I recently found my sketchbook I had in first grade. Now, it wasn't anything spectacular, but I've always been the kind of person that draws, and I've always drawn wherever I'm at. And so I carry a sketchbook with me everywhere I go. And I usually have multiple sketchbook. This sketchbook is 9 by 12, so it's a little bit bigger than something I might take with me just traveling around. But I did carry this to work and that sort of thing. And this sketchbook, I started it right before the pandemic, and I finished it a while ago. Now I have multiple sketchbooks, so this is just one of them. Now this is a Strathmore 300 series sketchbook. It is one of their cheaper sketchbooks. You can buy these just about anywhere. They're very reasonably priced. I think you pay about $10 for this size. I like this size. I've used these forever, and I bought one, like I said, right before the pandemic. But I forgot what I don't like about them. With the spiral at the top, it tends to get chewed up at the bottom. But if you carry a sketchbook, it's going to get chewed up now, no matter what. Now, the other thing I didn't think about when I bought it was when I do art, I draw on both sides. So when I'm doing a video, you're not going to see that top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video going through this way, and then I'll do a second video where I go through the other way with the book flipped over, so you can see all the drawings on the reverse side. But anyway, let me get started, and I'll just go through and I'll stop and I'll talk about various things. But a lot of this was done during a time when I was stuck at home and I couldn't travel. During the lockdowns. I worked at home for a couple months, and even after I was back in the office, there wasn't a lot. For a while in the office, we were alternating, so there's one artist in the office a week or at a time. We'd alternate, and so a lot of this was done at a time when I couldn't travel a lot. But anyway, let me get started. Now this sketchbook, I don't think this is the current image. I'm bad about, I'll kind of hack these things where I'll take the rings apart and I'll add pages and that sort of thing. This was originally like, I think the cover is a little bit different on the new ones, but this is the 300 series. And let me get started, and I'll talk about this. I like the 300 series because it's cheap. The paper is a little softer, a little rougher than what I'm used to using. But it does a pretty good job of picking up a deliberate line. And it kind of forced me to be less sketchy and more deliberate in my lines, which I kind of like about it. The thing I use most of the time in this, I used an HB lead, probably in a lead holder, which a lead holder, something like this, where it has a lead that you actually sharpen. And that's just because the HB lead seemed to work good on this. Anyway, okay, let me hold. Look at my. Anyway. Okay, so a lot of this you'll see is just practice for doing comic stuff. And you'll see a lot of comic characters. There's Namor, there's Wanda or Scarlet Witch, lots of figures, lots of faces. And I think it's important that as you're working on a comic book, as you're working on a sketchbook, as you're working on a sketchbook, that you do this and you allow yourself to make mistakes, that you don't really worry. That's why I don't really show this to somebody while I'm drawing it, because you can do like half drawn stuff, and like you're just trying to figure it out. This is my idea. There was a script floating around that you could send, that one of the Marvel editors was sending out for Spider-Gwen. Now Spider-Gwen isn't a character that I'm that familiar with. I've seen the comic. I did something completely different. I drew it kind of in a Bronze Age style. I don't think they appreciated it, but here's my thumbnails for what I did. And you can see I did some notes. There's my rough thumbnails, and then I did some bigger thumbnails. There's a car. I think I may have drawn this car from observation. I don't know, working on the muscles of the arm. More Spider-Gwen, trying to figure out what would a Bronze Age Spider-Gwen look like. And again, I don't think Marvel appreciated it. Here's one of the few ink drawings in this book. I read somewhere somebody was talking about, oh, you should work in ink and it'll make you do whatever. This is a long torso. One of the things I got to watch is putting too much space in the abdomen area. The space from the bottom of your rib cage to the top of your hips should only be about the width of your hand. Obviously, I got it stretched out a little bit there. Of course, you see all this stuff after you've drawn it. That's not too bad, but barbarian types. I did a comic, or I'm currently doing a comic called Heaven's Rejects. Heaven's Rejects is coming next year from Source Point Press. These are my thumbnails for this is chapter 4, actually. Oh, in fact, you know what? Let me leave this like this. Most of the book I did the other way. But this is the thumbnails for all 20 pages of the comic. Now, the publishers asked me to hang on to stuff like this, so this is good that I ran across this. But Heaven's Rejects is about 3 angels that get kicked out of heaven. They come to Earth and kind of fight. They fight like supernatural menaces. I've been pitching it. I've been telling people that it's a cross between Charlie's Angels and Hellboy. But I recently saw the new the Suicide Squad by James Gunn, and the writer Greg Wright really had that same kind of tone. Oh, now here's one of the few I don't know what you call it, it's like a tonal drawing that I did in my sketchbook. I'm not sure what inspired this. Obviously, it's kind of an Arthurian kind of thing or whatever. And I would shoot this and put it on Instagram and darken it up in the filters in Instagram or on the phone. More nonsense. I think this. So at one point during the pandemic, I was asked to do something like a COVID superhero type thing. I mean, you know, where the nurses and the doctors are superheroes, and of course COVID is the bad guy. I do a podcast notes. I have really been, if you're familiar with John Byrne, I've really been impressed with his Elsewins that he's doing on his forum. And sorry, trying to move the light. I've been impressed with his Elsewins that he's doing on his forum, and so I've kind of been looking at that in regards to that line work and some of my own stuff. Lots of figures. Oh, this is a comic strip that I haven't got very far on. Oh, Captain America Batroc, Batroc. For some reason, I revisited the Vulture thing, or the Spider-Gwen thing, Spider-Gwen and the Vulture. Oh, this was actually done on location. I was downtown. My wife and I were walking around, or she had to go to work. Again, this was during the pandemic, and I didn't have my small sketchbook like I normally take. So I had this. I sat on the curb and drew this car, and there's a coffee shop across the street. This is imaginary deals. Downtown Oklahoma City has tunnels underneath it, and I've kind of become obsessed with them. This is not what it looks like, but in my mind, this is what underground tunnels would look like. I think it comes from growing up during the era of Logan's Run and that sort of thing, where the science fiction was they were in an underground city or a dome city or whatever. And when I was a kid, they always told us, "Oh yeah, that's how it'll be when you grow up." And I always thought that sounded really cool. Except that everybody gets killed when they're 30, so that doesn't sound too cool. I watched The Prisoner, and this is the viewing order. If you've ever seen The Prisoner, if you haven't, you should watch it on Amazon Prime. But there's controversy about the viewing order, and that's the order that I found online that was recommended. This is Iron Man. I love the Bronze Age Iron Man. That's the Iron Man I grew up with. I did a couple pages here of classic superheroes. It's not a bad Thor. That's a pretty good one. I don't think I looked at anything on any of this, so it's not a swipe of anybody's, other than maybe some costume references. I recently picked up the Essential Marvel Comics Handbook to the Marvel Universe or something like that. And it copies, when I was a kid, they put out those comics. Oh, Nova. I love Nova. I love the classic Nova. Even the new one, I like the new Nova too. It's like his son or whatever. Alpha Flight. I'm a big John Byrne fan. But that Marvel team up thing, it has all their costumes. Great reference if you want to draw them. The New Warriors. I was late to discover the New Warriors, but recently, during the pandemic, I was so desperate to go to comic conventions that there was a group that came around and they rented a hotel ballroom or whatever, and they just sold comics at them. It's a little janky, but I went and they had a bunch of New Warriors for like 50 cents. I picked up like the first year or two of New Warriors. Probably more podcast notes, and I've become obsessed with this idea of you got to really draw. If you can draw a real simplified figure, then it'll help you when you draw start off with something like this. I think I was reading. I think this is from a figure drawing book I was going through. I don't know which one. This would have been a while back. Oh, so my friend Ellis, good friend of mine, Ellis Goodson. We've done a couple movies together. If you go to my webpage, you can see him. I have links to him, but he came up with a script for one called Space Poison, and I thought it was cool, so I did an idea for a poster. A little more ink stuff, kind of a more movie type Thor, but that's the classic Thor costume. Again, trying to work on foreshortening. Cyclops. Cyclops is one of my favorite X-Men because he's the leader and he's always got everything under control. I don't know what's going on here. I was drawing some kind of scenario. Arm practice. Like I said, I think I was going through a figure drawing book, part of this. Figure practice. My sketchbooks are filled with this kind of stuff. Just trying to get that, trying to get quick at it, really. And it's been fairly successful, actually. This book really upped my drawing speed, working through this stuff. There's kind of some of your classic Avengers, classic X-Men. You can tell I'm a Marvel guy, or at least I was growing up for sure, like that. I don't know what this is. This must be thumbnails for some. Looks like comic page, but I don't recognize what it is. Marvel, a little more. I don't do a lot of this kind of real finished and tonal stuff, but there's a little bit of it in here. Hercules, Spider-Man. My idea was I do a real elaborate background. I kind of got bored with it. Well, I think I decided the figure wasn't that good. I don't know what this is from. I don't know if I just made that up. I don't do weird creatures enough. Maybe that's what, and I tried to do some of that. Motorcycle. I like motorcycles. Never had one, but I like drawing. They're cool because they're so mechanical. Classic Hawkeye. I love Hawkeye. You'll see more Hawkeye through here. If not through here, through the sequel. Kind of a barbarian type. I don't know what this is. I was drawing just restaurants or whatever. I was so tired of being at home that I was drawing places. Last year I had physical therapy. I hurt my back and I had a little bit of physical therapy. So I drew this while I was waiting for physical therapy figure. That's not bad. For some reason I've never drawn faces on them unless I finish them out. I think I copied these stick figures out of How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. I think. Oh, no, this was just a drawing of someone. This is kind of like a mall in my head. This is what a shopping mall might look like. I grew up in the era where we used to go to malls and hang out, so I missed that. Oh, Draw Figure Ahead by Doug Jamieson. That's a great book. It doesn't have a lot of instruction, but he goes through all the muscles in the body like this, and one by one adds on to the. It's a lot of work to get through. Oh, I thought this was pretty cool. I'm sure there's stuff wrong with it. The figure could be a little bulkier. I tend to draw thin figures for some reason, but I wanted to draw a guy fighting a lion. I thought it'd be like a John Carter kind of thing, or some kind of Burroughs, like an Edgar Rice Burroughs deal. Not necessarily Tarzan, but figures. Batgirl. More figures. Like I said, I fill my book up with this. Again, this is a restaurant. Like my idea was like a restaurant just drawn from imagination. You know, I worked at a fast food restaurant when I was in high school, so I kind of know what they look like behind the counter. You know, Conan type, Nightcrawler, of course. Liminal space. I'd never heard that term before. If you're unfamiliar with, look it up. Liminal space. Figures. Lots of figures in here. For some reason, I switched to a blue pencil for part of this. Now you can see I'm getting into 2021. That's a Wolverine, a Storm. I don't know who that is. This is from my How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. It was the discussion I did about drawing in perspective. This is a story that, and in one of my other sketchbooks, I did this in more detail. I'm working on kind of a story of my own. Some kind of cowboy types. The hat's wrong. I don't know why I didn't. Oh well. The Spider, I think that's who that is. I love the old pulp characters. More Cyclops. Kind of an X-Men. Sometimes I'll draw people that they're not X-Men, but maybe they should be. This was a perspective thing. I did this on my other video about drawing in perspective. I just kind of gave an example of drawing in perspective. I drew like a 7-Eleven, or actually a U-totem in perspective to show how perspective works. When I was a kid, I have a cousin who's an artist, and he's about 15 years older than me. So when I was a kid, he was going through college, and he kind of set me down and told me how perspective worked. He kind of explained it to me, and it immediately made sense to me. Now, it took me a while to figure out how to apply it to buildings and stuff, but I could see it like with houses and stuff, but I didn't grow up in a town with a lot of tall buildings, so it kind of took me a while there. I had to, at one point, I actually went to downtown Oklahoma City and did some drawing and took some pictures to kind of figure out how buildings work, because the town I lived in didn't have buildings, didn't have tall buildings. Little town in Oklahoma. My wife had foot surgery, and so I did this of the drawing of the room while I was waiting for her to get through it, and drew some surgical equipment, and I don't know what that is. Oh, yeah, dude, that's her. I was drawing her on the pillow. That's my wife's hair. I don't know why I didn't finish it, is what I meant to say. More figures, lots of figures. You can never get too good at drawing the figure. This is a copy of, I bought a book from a guy named Kenneth Landgraf. He sells a book, and it's basically just a book of his drawings, but it's all figures, and he breaks them down into shapes. It's pretty interesting. I learned a lot from it. Yeah. I have no idea what these characters are. Just people I drew. Oh, okay. This is my comic that I was talking about. I'm gonna do a comic that takes place in 1976. It's basically if you found a Bronze Age comic. I want it to look like a Bronze Age comic, kind of. Has people in wrestling mask in it. Oh, I experimented with a darker pencil. You don't see much of that in here. Yeah, the figure's jinky looking. But, I mean, you just keep going. You gotta, do the good and the bad. My goal is never to do anything, or not, my goal is to just do it and just get better, where you do less bad ones. Don't try and make everything perfect, because it'll stiffen you up. That needs work. But if you don't go in and do this, and you're like, well, okay, I could have done, that needs a little more flow to it, and this arm kind of meanders off into space. Stick figures. This is where you learn that kind of stuff. You can do these and figure out all these problems. And again, at one point I was like, I need to do more of a looser, more, not necessarily looser, more of a basic figure and fix my problems in there. There's a Kung Fu movie called Born Invincible. I love that. I love that title. It's so evocative of just something cool. We're getting close to the end. Okay, night. Let's see, is there anything else? I think these last couple pages. Oh yeah, I did some, yeah, the rest is blank. But anyway, this is version A, I guess, if you call it that, of my sketchbook. My 2020-2021 sketchbook run through. Again, if you like it, I'll do the other side where I show you. I don't know how to do it. I guess I'll do it like this, where I'll show you, that and go through that, because then that'll put it in order. Because I drew this and then this, or I draw it in order. But anyway, I'll do that on that one. But anyway, if you like it, holler at me. If you don't keep a sketchbook and you're an artist, you really should keep a sketchbook. Like I said, one of these is about $10. And if you don't draw like a little thing on each page, if you fill up a page, I always try and fill up my pages. If you fill up a page, it'll take you a while to get through this thing, especially if you do both sides, which I think you should. This is a good thing. This one's a little big to carry around if you don't have a backpack or something like that. But anyway, it gave me hours of entertainment during the pandemic. Anyway, thank you for watching. Again, if you like it, check out my other videos and subscribe. And like I said, leave a review, or if you have any comments, holler at me and I'll do my best to answer them. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Good night.